Our second reading today comes from Matthew 23, 1 through 12. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore do whatever they teach you and follow it, but do not do as they do, for they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on the shoulders of others, but they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. They love to have the place of honor at banquets and the best seats in the synagogues, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and to have people call them rabbi. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers and sisters. And call no one your father on earth, for you have one Father, the one in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant, and all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted." So my sermon today is, "May their memory be a blessing." And this is a phrase that comes from the Jewish tradition of how that certainly we should remember those who came before and have passed beyond, but that we should live lives so that our memory will inspire others and guide others, and that memory will be a blessing through the actions of those who come after. And so it's important, I think, that here at St. Martin's that we combine Totenfest, a remembrance of the dead, with also a recognition of the newborn. Because we are living in that liminal space of beginnings and endings being connected. And we hope that these children will remember and know the stories of those who came before, and live into those stories in their own unique way. Not bound to live exactly the same, but to be fueled by the memories of those that still live and those who came before. And that as they live, that they are filled with encouragement, because we are a community bound together. And when we look at things like our baptism ritual, the baptism ritual is honestly more about the congregation than the child. Confirmation is when the child comes into that and the focus shifts. But if we look at our baptism ritual, we are promising to walk with this child as God walks with us, to provide guidance and care, to tell the stories of our community so that child will be inspired to carry that story forward. In these passages, the Beatitudes, and also this other passage from Mark 23, we are seeing the call of what the church is supposed to be, and a recognition of where God's people so often are, and then what we tend to do. Because so often we get so focused on the rules and regulations and am I living into the Sunday best, that we forget the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor in spirit. And elsewhere, blessed are the poor. The marginalized are so often forgotten. And yet, how often, when we look in our own community, do we find people? We find that we ourselves are those people. We tend to hide it behind fancy clothes and the general statements that we say. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. We don't very often share the struggles that we have to overcome or the hardships we have to live with. Our lives can put a face to the struggles that we see on the news. Because aren't those struggles right here amongst us? Our community here can face those hardships and resolve those hardships. We can work together to create a beloved community where the hunger and the addiction and the various other issues of the world, they're not out there the way that we think that they are. They're right here among us, here in this building and here in our broader community. We forget that these are the people that Jesus calls blessed. Blessed are those who are struggling. And blessed are those that reach out in the warmth and compassion that we see modeled in Jesus to help heal that suffering. Blessed are those that are struggling. And blessed are those that attempt to heal that suffering. Blessed are those who are struggling. And may we work to dissolve that. And may we be an inspiration in those actions to those who are coming along behind us. It's very easy for us to put impossible rules and regulations on other people, on ourselves, and on those that are coming after us. It's easy for us to fall into judgment, to hide that log in our own eye, and to pick at and point out the splinter in someone else's. It's easy for us to demoralize our children and our neighbors. But we can remember these Beatitudes and this warning that Jesus also gets and gives us. Don't be those good church folk who drive people from the church, who speak out quickly in judgment. Because, boy, isn't it hard to do that. We live in a world that has all of us so ramped up, on our last nerve. And you know when Grandma says, "You're on my last nerve," you know you better either do something or get away. Because bad things are coming if you're on Grandma's last nerve. The problem is that right now we're all on our last nerve, it seems like. So how instead do we breathe in the peace that God gives us to settle ourselves and heal those things that are hurting us, to turn to one another in honesty, so that we then can do the work that we need to do? because I don't think any of us do work well when we're on our last nerve. When we're so busy, so tired, so frustrated, so overburdened, because doesn't the world put burdens on us? When we are overburdened, whether that is family expectations or world expectations, when our nerves are shot, how hard is it for us to be loving and compassionate? How hard is it for us to love and care? So I think that we have these two visions here. One, a vision of, who the blessed are. And we can find ourselves there. We can find our neighbors there. We can find the people we like there, and we can find the people that we don't like there. And we don't want to be like those leaders that snipe and complain, that, speak big words but don't live into them. And so often, the people that we see that truly are living into God's call aren't necessarily the ones that are proclaiming themselves as God's representatives. When I think of the phrase, "May their memory be a blessing," I go back time and time again to my great-grandfather. He wasn't an educated man, but he had wisdom beyond any I have seen. Kindness and hospitality that is like no other I've seen. And as I've said many times before, in the 1970s, when so much of our country, including the community that I grew up in, was segregated, everyone was welcome in his home. Male and female, white and black, straight, trans, all were welcome at his table. And I have never seen in this world anything more Christ-like. He set a standard that I try to live into. That's what we mean when we say, "May their memory be a blessing." May we look at the people around us for those expressions of God's love, of Christ's call. And may we say, that's what I want to live into. That's what I hope we instill in these little ones. That they will see in us a call, a life that gives them a foretaste of glory divine. As the old song says. We can be those people. We really can. And I pray that we are those people. They're looking to us. May we be a blessing now and a blessing that decades down the road continues in the life of these kids coming up behind us. May it be so.